Right at this very moment, inside your head, your brain is actively executing its own unused cells. This scale illustrates the metabolic paradox driving that destruction. The human brain makes up just 2% of your total body weight, yet the rising meter shows it consumes a massive 20% of your metabolic energy. Because it runs so hot, the brain operates in a state of fierce biological competition. Neuroscientists call this competitive plasticity. Every neural circuit has to constantly fight for survival resources, and the losers are dismantled. Forgetting a skill is a targeted biological assassination designed to keep the rest of your brain from starving. To understand how this purge works, we have to look at how the brain organizes itself. Every skill you have, typing, playing a guitar, speaking a language, occupies physical territory on the surface of your brain. Think of it as cortical real estate. This real estate is strictly governed by the biological law of use it or lose it. Because space inside the skull is limited, acquiring a new capability literally steals physical room from an idle one. When you fall into a predictable, highly routine daily schedule, you only activate a narrow set of neural pathways. This isolates the unused territories, marking those quiet areas as primary targets for the brain's energy-saving executioners. Every hour you spend coasting through a comfortable, effortless routine is an active, physical surrender of your brain matter to this internal purge. This biological ruthlessness actually begins early in life. The childhood brain is defined by a chaotic, densely packed overgrowth of synapses. It builds connections for every possible stimulus it encounters. Right around adolescence, the brain initiates a massive, unavoidable pruning back operation to bring order to that chaos. This chart tracks synaptic density over time. The line peaks wildly in early childhood. As the timeline crosses into adolescence, it drops sharply. An immature brain has 50% more connections than an adult brain, and half are suddenly and ruthlessly destroyed. For decades, neuroscientists believed this intense pruning process was a permanent one-way street, an irreversible purge that locked the adult brain into a state of continuous cognitive decay. From that perspective, crossing the threshold into adulthood meant you were operating a mind that had already begun its permanent structural decline. That grim consensus held until pioneer researchers discovered a biological loophole. They proved that older, heavily pruned brains retain the physical ability to radically rejuvenate themselves. Activating this rejuvenation requires breaking entirely out of automatic routines. You have to force the brain into a highly unnatural state of intense, hyper-focused attention. Look at this cross-section of the brain. When you exert that kind of extreme focus, it lights up this specific cluster at the base, called the nucleus basalis. It acts as the brain's main control center for plasticity. Once activated, the nucleus basalis triggers a massive chemical wash of a specific growth factor, sending it radiating upward over the entire cortex. This chemical wave acts as a shield. It protects existing neurons from the execution process, and it physically forces those isolated, frayed neural branches to extend and lock together into dense new networks. But this survival mechanism cannot be triggered by easy, familiar tasks. It only responds to the severe friction of highly difficult, frustrating learning. If you aren't struggling, the nucleus basalis stays dormant. The brain's physical decay is a default setting. You can override it with the chemical shock of intense frustration. Bring this back to your immediate present. Right now, your daily, comfortable routine is actively shrinking your brain maps. Understanding this mechanism is a strict medical reality check. If you miss this window to act, you lose the only biological defense you have against mental decay. The requirement is specific. You must begin struggling with a complex physical or mental skill, like learning a new language, mastering an instrument, or navigating difficult new environments, if you want to survive the purge. If you choose inaction, your cortical real estate will be swallowed by the void, permanently lost to your brain's relentless energy demands, which leaves you with a final physical question. What crucial part of your mind did you allow to die today by choosing comfort over struggle?